Yeah, okay, time to live free. Plenty goals I'm achieving. Some real life topics and talking financial freedom. Mindset, soul and love, everything in between. This is Freedom Podcast. Tune in, live free. Hey, got my mindset right and I got the drive. Planning one day, no more job, no more 9 to 5. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. This is Freedom. Tune in, cause it's going down. Woo!
Hi, this is Anna and welcome to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. In this episode, I interview Emma Last. Emma is the founder of Progressive Minds and has over 20 years experience in cultural change, wellbeing coaching and training. She worked as a director in senior leadership for a large corporate for many years, and in 2017, she came to a turning point in her career and wanted to gain more of a balance in her own life. Progressive Minds supports professionals and business owners with a solutions-focused approach to overall mental health, well-being, cultural change and performance through training, coaching and mentorship programs, such as her Human Reboot movement. Her clients say they have become more mentally well fit, happier and gain the results they want in their lives. She's also a co-writer of the First Aid Industry Body's accredited mental health and wellbeing training. She actually recently interviewed me in her Human Reboot movement with her new podcast she's launched. And something you don't know is me and Emma actually went to school together. We recently connected on social media. So it just shows you the power of connection through social platforms. So I'm really super excited about interviewing Emma today. Hi Emma, good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So what is really interesting is you contacted me, I think it was, I was going to say several months, but it's probably only a few weeks ago now, out of the blue. I think I'd added you as a friend on Facebook, as you do when you connect with like-minded people. And then you spotted that actually we were old friends from school and I hadn't even noticed. So it's been really great to reconnect with you. In fact, last time when we spoke, I think we spoke for nearly an hour. So let's try and keep it a bit more succinct on this interview.
And we'll try our best not to just laugh every 2 minutes.
Exactly. But yeah. I think what has been really lovely from my side is that I do really feel like you reconnect with people who you meant to reconnect with. We were talking about this before, just as we kind of kicked off when we were talking about that whole spiritual side or not, and we both admitted that we're probably not really that spiritual, although we might have our own spiritual side. But I do feel like we've reconnected for a reason, and it's just great to interview on this show because I think from what I can see of your line of work, you're doing a lot of fab stuff around mental health, and I notice you're doing this Human Reboot movement. So I'm just really curious to find out how this really all came about, really. So how did you get to be doing this coaching online and this Human Reboot movement? What's it all about?
Well, it's a bit of a long story, but I'll try and keep it succinct, which may be a slight problem, as Anna knows me. What happened really was after 19 years of working in corporate, I burnt out and I made the decision to leave, but it wasn't really until I left that I realised kind of how stressed and poorly I'd become, really. And what had happened over time, I mean, I love my work. I always have loved being really passionate about whatever I've done. And I would say that I was addicted to my work. And so just like any other addict, that's really, why I ended up in the place that I did. So I really had to build myself back up again. And my options really were, do I go to the doctors and start to, and get a diagnosis? Or do I start to really dig deep within myself and, revisit those tools that I knew that I had in my kit bag? My life hasn't necessarily been easy. And that's kind of a little bit why sometimes when people talk about woo stuff, I'm a bit like, well, I just believe that, if you work really hard at something, then, hopefully that you'll get some luck and it'll, it'll all come together. But also, from the kind of the perspective, just having the drive that I had, really, I knew that before I went down that route, I wanted to see if I could fix myself. And that's not necessarily what I advise people now, because, not everybody can do that. And actually, I did have to hit rock bottom to be able to kind of bounce back from that. But everything that I did really was about my work or about my kids, and I'd really lost my identity.
Yes.
So, which is really easy to do, when you become a mum, or, you become engrossed in your work, or, you become engrossed in maybe volunteering or some sort of passion, you can start to kind of, lose yourself, and you have to be really careful. So, yeah, that's where I got to. And then I just started building myself back up. It's like, well, how am I going to do this? What tools have I got in my kit bag? And what do I need to learn? And that was one of a big learn, was really that I was so aware of how I needed to behave in a corporate environment. I was so aware of how I needed to behave in front of my children. I was so aware of what everybody expected of me. But what I wasn't aware of, I wasn't self-aware in the fact that I wasn't aware of my own needs. And that really, that was a real huge starting point for me. It was like, actually, do you know what? I've got to start putting myself first. And as I say to my clients now, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first to be able to help others. So that's what I did. I was fortunate enough. Part of the reason kind of why I left was we went through a huge restructure, and I was fortunate enough to leave with some redundancy. So that did give me a little bit of breathing space to kind of work on myself. So the first things I did really was like get out there and, reconnect with friends, and, get back to the gym and start, playing tennis, and, reconnect with old friends. And then this whole learning piece as well, everything had really, all my learning had been about my work rather than about things that, that would benefit me internally. And so that was a kind of a huge part. So yeah, all of that. And all of a sudden, pretty much, well, when I say all of a sudden, within sort of 3 months, I was back to me, and started to know where I was going, and was like, right, I'm going to go into businesses. And a lot of the work I'd done previously was around culture change and supporting businesses to perform. So it was like, right, everything I've learned about mental health and well-being, I'm now going to start to put into a resilience program and support businesses through transition. So that's really where my sort of interest in mental health and well-being started. And then, so I do support businesses and workplaces with mental health and wellbeing strategies, and mental health training. So I've co-written some mental health and wellbeing training that's now been accredited by the First Aid Industry Body. And yeah, and
so is that to support like the workforce in a business, basically, through transitions and things like that, or change?
So that training is more your traditional sort of mental health, first aid type training, but something that I'm really passionate about. I absorbed myself in the whole well-being learning side, and it wasn't just, oh, here's Emma's way to well-being. It was like, right, what are the proven ways to well-being? And I took proven things and then I implemented it on myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I proved it was proven already because it was research, but also I proved it worked as well. So it wasn't just something that, because you see a lot of people now kind of going, oh, this is my, these are my 7 steps to well-being or whatever. And it's just like, well, how proven is it? What research is there behind it? And because that's sort of a danger that we're kind of facing at the moment, because well-being is a fashionable field to be in, if that makes sense. So yeah, so it really was kind of focusing on those proven elements. So yeah, so the well-being part was it was like, if you want me to be involved in this project, then there's got to be well-being in it, because at that point, mental health wasn't really my specialism. I'd started to learn about it and learn about, what had happened to me. And, but the well-being side was where kind of my strength was. And I'd done a well-being coaching qualification as well. Which was really just, I'd coached in my corporate world for 20 years, so it was almost just putting a little bit of a different slant on it. It was historically, it was more business and performance coaching, but this was really about bringing the well-being element into it.
Yeah.
So that's really what I did, and I'd got in the back of my mind that I wanted to help. I wanted to launch something that was more online, where I was kind of tapping into more individuals, if that makes sense. But it was really, as a lot of my personal coaching clients and group coaching clients came from the work that I did within businesses, which was around like this mental health, like the first aid type and well-being training, resilience training, and sort of agility type, adaptability type training. But then what then happened, with the pandemic, was it kind of made me think, well, actually businesses are kind of furloughed at the moment. It's kind of harder to perhaps find those individual coaching clients that kind of came through those businesses. So I thought, right. And also, people really need help right now. So I sat there, and I was with a good friend. She was like online. She was actually sat, she lives in the south. She was sat in a garden in the sunshine while it was peeing down with rain in the north. And literally she was like, right. So I said, I need to get everything out of my head, but how do I get everything out of my head that I've done and I do my clients? Because it almost was like, when I wellbeing coached, it was a bit like, oh, this is so natural. It's like it's my zone of genius. It's because I've probably had all that experience.
Exactly. It's like more like it's really comfortable. You can do it like the back of your hand, sort of thing.
Yeah, but then also the knowledge, the newer knowledge that I built, as and the things that I know work. I can kind of mentor people, within it. So it was like, right, how do I pick all that out of my brain and actually put it into something that can help people? So my friend sat there and was like, right, okay, let's just get Post-it notes and let's see where we can kind of, she was like, well, what do you normally start people doing, coaching? Well, I said, I always start at the beginning and I get them to tell my story, and then I listen and then I unpick everything. And she's like, well, when you unpick it, what direction does it go in? So I was like, well, it could go this way or that way or this way or that way. And but a lot of it was like, well, it could this way, it could be purpose, or it could be passion, it could be mental health or stress related, it could be resilience related, it could. So literally this program that I'd obviously used to put myself back together, but also used for my individual coaching clients, was born because it was like, right, I need to help people to reboot now, whether that be hopefully that they're not at a point where as bad as I was, but also to kind of help them develop those soft skills that were often not taught.
Exactly.
Yeah, of how to handle and adapt, to challenging and changing times, which, I think we've all had to go through this year. So
definitely,
yeah. So that's where my baby was born.
That's where the human reboot movement all began.
Yeah.
So no, it's really interesting because obviously I can see some things I can like sort of align with on my whole journey with everything that you shared. And I also think that it's not to say that men get burnout and and I think it's usually from them really, burning out within work and stuff. But I do think as mums, because if you kind of look at how women have changed, there's a lot more women who are the breadwinners or are in leadership corporate roles. Plus, as women, if you are a mum, that is, you want it all, don't you? You want to be a good mum, you want to have your career, and it's all give, give, give. And so the only outlet that's going to get neglected is actually yourself. And I think a lot of women who are mums especially can relate to that, because you just don't prioritize you, do you? Because you just like, there's all this time that you don't seem to have enough time, but you have actually got to put that time in. And like you say, sort of rediscover you, I think, and taking that step back, because I know I definitely went through that with my whole thing. So I'm not saying that to undermine guys, because I know a lot of guys that have gone through a whole burnout thing, and they've, had that, I suppose, work-life balance, or not that I really believe you can get a balance, but with family and with work. But I do think, especially with mums, I think a lot of mums would say that they've neglected themselves, even if they've not got to that burnout stage, just because how things have transitioned, where women tend to do, or are doing, less of them are doing like the part-time jobs. There are a lot of women who do part-time jobs, but we want it all, don't we? We want our career, and we want to be a good mum. And I think it's hard to get all that whole balance together.
It's that kind of, I mean, we went to the same school, so it was always, we were, in some ways we were so lucky, because we went to a girls' school, so but actually the advantage, there was some disadvantages to that, in that there was no boys in it. So then meant, obviously, that I was like, boys,
with the school next door.
yeah. But what was amazing, I think, kind of looking back, and it's only really probably in the last sort of 12 months that I've realized that, actually, do you know what? We really had a huge advantage, because we were all girls. It was like, girls, you can achieve anything. It was like, my girls go to this university, or my girls do. It was like, do whatever they want to do. It was like girls in science, girls in industry, girls. There was like no stopping us, and there was no barriers to what you could achieve.
Go on. I've got a point to make up this.
Yeah. So I think that has always kind of, that drive to achieve has always been within me, which is also like, has meant that I've always been really ambitious, and always thought, yes, I can have it all. So it's also a bit of a downside as well, because it's not, because it was like, career is really important. And also, when your parents have invested in, in education for you, which we were very fortunate. So it's a different, and that wasn't easy. Do you know what I mean? That was like, we were a pretty normal family.
Yeah.
So
there is that pressure, because obviously they've invested their hard work. They've invested in our education, that pressure. And also, I think it was quite fairly competitive, wasn't it? Like you say, and I think most of our friends from that school have become strong women, even if that hasn't been educationally. They've been really driven women and strong women in their lives. Do you know what I mean? There's like no messing with the QMS girls type of thing. So, what is interesting? I was reading some stats on like independent private schools, all girls and all boys, and girls do really well in an all girls environment, but boys do better in a mixed environment. And I thought that was really interesting, because I suppose boys are a distraction to girls, as in maybe there's that social, don't know what you call it now, that social impact of guys are superior, maybe a little bit. So girls, apparently, they're more likely to put their hand up if there's no boys in the class. Whereas if it's a mixed school, girls sort of sit back and wait for the boys to answer the question. Apparently there's all these studies been done, but with boys, they do better competing against those girls, which I thought was really interesting. It's like an ego thing, isn't it, really? How the different sexes perform. I thought that was really interesting. It was an article that I read not so long ago, because I'd seen the headline and wanted to read it, because obviously I'd gone to an all-girls school. But I do think I feel the same. I think I was the breadwinner in my relationship, and I think I was just really driven, but never really had that time for me until things went wrong.
Yeah.
So it is interesting, isn't it? That work ethic of really being driven and working hard. And actually, it doesn't do you any favors, does it? Like, it's good on one hand. You know what I mean? It is good because you're driven, but at the same time, because I know even now sometimes I have to pull myself and rein myself back of being a work addict. Because I think sometimes with your own business, you can, especially working online, you know, it's so tempting to do stuff when really, you know, like it's the weekend, you should be chilling out or whatever, but because you enjoy it as well, you have got to sort of, sometimes I do have to force myself to take time for me, which is interesting.
It's definitely, that is something people always say to me, oh, well, you've got it, you've got it now, you've nailed it, you've nailed balance. Because I, like you, don't necessarily believe in a work-life balance. I believe in a life balance. There's lots of things. So when you start to kind of, so I do this like self-evaluation at the beginning of the reboot, and they look at what certain elements within their lives. So it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and they kind of, so if you've got, you're looking at your pieces of your jigsaw, and there's lots of different elements that make up, I think, life balance, not just work and family, etc. So that whole part of that balance, people are like, well, you've just absolutely nailed it. And it's like, no, actually, I know what I need to do to balance it, but it doesn't mean to say that I've nailed it all the time. It means that I'm aware that I need to be aware, to be aware of it. And that's the difference. Is so like every single day, without fail, I will be walking. I have time on my own. And it might only be 10, 15 minutes. And actually I should walk more than that. And I need to push myself a bit more with it. But like this morning, I've already been out and, been for a walk.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it is helpful that I've got a dog that does whack me one if I doesn't get a walk. But yeah. Will literally start scratching at me. She comes and like scratches at my leg at the side of the desk and says, "Come on!" It's like, and it's like, "Come on, Mum. You've worked all day now. It's time to go. We're going for a walk." So it is. Yeah, that is actually she is a good help.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to ask you actually about how, because the reason I put this podcast together, I talk about 3 pillars. Freedom podcast, self-care being one. So freedom in love is one of them, but it's not romantic relationships. It's self-love really and self-care. The right self-love and self-care. Freedom in money and freedom in mind. Because those 3 things I think have helped me get equilibrium. Because if you're financially stuck, and there were challenges that I had, then that gives you stress. If you've got Fred in the head and you're anxious and you're all over the place with your mind, that knocks you off balance. And also actually giving a shit about yourself and self-care, like you're saying about your daily walk and things like that, or just taking time out for you that's nothing to do with your husband or your children or work, just literally time for you. Like you say, even if it is just 15 minutes a day. I do a religious thing now with like a bath at the end of the day. And like, I just look, like a really, really proper pamper bath where I've got all the magnesium salts and candles. And I notice if I don't do it, I feel like I've really missed out. So is there anything for people that are listening to this that might be relating to what you're saying, especially around burnout with work? What would be the first step? 'Cause I think sometimes you're really stuck, aren't you? And it's actually being aware is the first step of like, actually that you kind of need some help or you need to change direction or do something. Is there anything initially you can share sort of to help?
Yeah, I mean, there's so one thing that we work on in the reboot is we look at actually how stress manifests itself in our bodies. So, what are your signs? So when in the past, when you've been really stressed, what happens? What are your responses? Is it that you shout at the kids? Is it that you get a bit of a icky tummy? Is it that you get a headache? Is it that you get a migraine? Is it that you become poorly when you take a break? So it's kind of thinking like, actually, when I'm not stressed, I'm like this. And when I am stressed, I'm like this. So what are the signs, and were there any signs leading up to that in between? And this is really important for people that are career driven or entrepreneurs, because sometimes we don't know when to stop. Yeah. And that whole just kind of almost having a bit of a sliding scale of knowing where you are, so what are my warning signs? And then sometimes going, so I've got a bit of a template of warning signs and going, yeah, actually I'm edging towards that. So what can I do differently? And something that was really transformational for me, and actually I've got it as a free resource on the Human Reboot website, is I got the NHS 5 steps to wellbeing, or ways to wellbeing. It was called, when the research was done, it was called 5 ways to wellbeing, but they've changed it to steps. So just search for either. So basically the five ways to wellbeing will, what I did with that was I kind of looked at my life and evaluated my life against that kind of structure, if that made sense. So it's like, right, well, connect. How am I connecting with people? How am I being active? How am I giving? How am I keeping learning? And how am I being like mindful? How am I taking notice? And literally I evaluated that and I was like, it's no wonder I feel rubbish, is it? Because actually a lot of my connections were very like work related. They weren't deep and meaningful, like, connections, or, those, I was hardly having any time to get in contact with my best friends and things like that, and my network had become very work orientated. It's like, right, who are my people? And so that is having a good support network, both a close and deep support network, but also a wide network's important. Keep learning, which I said, at the beginning, which is about kind of learning for you. And that can be literally anything. It could be that you're just stretching your muscles. That's a little bit about your growth mindset, and you're stretching that little comfort zone. Sometimes you only need to stretch it by 3% to get a great reward. Doesn't have to be that you stretch yourself to the limits. And that's really interesting because, just even by cooking a new recipe, or just mixing things up a bit, doing a jigsaw, or, walking somewhere new, or deciding you're going to learn a new language. It doesn't have to be any a university degree, but it could be anything that that you want to do. And it could be learning about like bird songs, or identifying trees when you're out on a walk. It could be anything, but it's just that kind of growth mindset type. But everything that I did was kind of work related. Have I done give? So the give was really around, I was giving so much, too much, if that makes sense. I was volunteering, I was fundraising, I was doing everything for my kids. I was giving loads back, to more than I probably needed to, back to the business. And it was really not about, it was a bit like, actually, that's probably off the scale if I was to do it out of 10. And actually, I need to be aware of that, about where my boundaries are and what's too much. And it is a tendency. I am like that. It is something that I have to watch. I have to watch myself for, because and naturally I do want to give. And then the other thing, it was taking notice. So when did I stop? When did I learn to pause? When did I pause in my life? When did I step off the hamster wheel? When did I, go for a walk? Or when did I just sit and breathe? I don't think I. So, and I kind of marked each of those areas out of 10. So there's like a little template on my website that you can do that with, and
Oh, that's quite good then for people to go to. So
yeah.
I was going to say to we'll put your human reboot movement. It's human reboot movement.
Yeah.
And we'll put the link for anyone that's listening to this in the show comments. If you listen to it on iTunes or in the comment section on YouTube, you'll see it anyway. And that's on that website, is it?
Yeah, so you just on the first page there's like squares, and then you just pick the one that says like free resources and just click on that, and it takes you through. So it's the well-being evaluation of your well-being or something like that. It says well-being on it. There's two on that page. There's the jigsaw one that's on the left, and then there's the well-being one that's on the right.
Well, that sounds like a really great resource though that people can go and check out, because it's something tangible that can actually go through, like a little exercise, isn't it? Which is really useful.
And you can plan where you want that to be. And it's like, right, okay, so that's where I am now. And where do I what changes do I think that I need to make to get a bit more balance across my well-being? There's a lot more to it than that. But it just, for me, just that kind of whole realization of, oh, heck.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, was a really big step forward and just helped me to kind of know where to focus my effort.
Yeah, because then you can just basically see your whole life at a glance, really, on paper, can't you?
Yeah.
It's like a good exercise to go through. I might go through it.
Yeah, and you can see in there as well, you can see kind of how bad mine was. I use me as an example, and then I tell you kind of where I'm at now. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think
I think that thing, I've got a real sort of beam my bonnet about, I can't even say it, beam my bonnet about balance, because I think no one ever has perfect balance. That in my head, it's something that you're always working on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But you can have better balance than you had. You know what I mean? But it's when you notice that there's like something that's dominating, I think. And more so if you've got like you say about work being addictive, for people who have got addictions, they'll notice that is dominating, whether that be food, alcohol, drugs, whatever. It's something and work can be in that, can't it? Because it can dominate. It's when something's dominating and sort of taking up so much time in your life. I think anyway, but I think it's hard to get a perfect balance, and I'm sure I don't think there's many people that say, oh yeah, I've got the perfect balance. I think most people, even if they feel that they've got a very good balance, it's something that they keep needing to check on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that, especially people who are like very mission led. So, my mission is to help, people to live life as their true selves, and to live in a way where they're mentally fit and mentally healthy, and they're happy, and they can have high impact and high income, high impact, so they can have it all. But they're almost within that having it all. There does need to be a priority. So we need to know when we need to switch off so that we can have time with our family.
Yeah.
And I think, I came from a family, my dad was, that's where I got it from.
Yeah.
It's all his fault.
Similar with me. So I know I often ask about challenges and sort of things that you're proud of. And I think you've covered it with everything that happened with your work. And why you're doing what you're doing now. Within this whole sort of journey, what are you proud of, really? Is it this human reboot movement? Or tell us what's happening in the future. What projects are you working on now?
Okay. So two of the things that I'm really proud of are the courses, the mental health and wellbeing courses. So that was 2019. I co-wrote that. So that was mental health and wellbeing in the workplace. The other one that I co-wrote last year was child and young person's mental health and wellbeing, and that's actually to support teachers in how they can support children. Teachers or those working with kids. So that for me, it's not my core business, but it was I've been a governor for about 5 or 6 years of a school, and
Brave.
and I love it. I'm weird like that. No, yeah, I do absolutely love it. And also, just that. Well, in the last sort of 10 years in my corporate world, I had a lot of involvement with schools as well, and working with schools and teachers.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that was like, there was like, when I left, there was two things that I thought, we need to be dealing with. People were talking about, oh, the behaviour is so bad in schools and da da da. And it was like, okay, well, actually, what we need to be doing is working out whether it is behaviour or actually have we got strong wellbeing foundations in those schools or not.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that literally that was in my head and it was like, well, which direction should I go in? Or actually there's businesses and individuals like me that need support through transition, with those softer skills, if that makes sense. That
you probably need a lot of it at the moment with everything that, that COVID has brought within schools with children. I think children, there's probably a lot of mental health issues with children, and also teachers and all the pressure of everything that's gone on. Really,
and within that, it's mainly focused on well-being for the kids, but actually at the end of it, it's got a section on the teachers as well and how they look after their own well-being. Because by learning about mental health and well-being of the children, they start to learn and become more aware about themselves as well. But so that's something that I'm really proud of. Obviously, I love my human reboot. The thing that kind of gets me the most is, so the thing I'm probably most proud of is like when we're at a certain review point, like when I'm coaching someone, and it's like when they start saying like, oh, this is like, I feel so differently about my life, or I wouldn't have been doing that. So like one of the ladies I coached last year, she went from being, in our first session, we did an assessment to check whether she was depressed or not, because sometimes I won't necessarily take people into the program if I don't feel that they're in the right place. I direct them to the support and help that they need first. Because it might be that they need some therapy first before they come to me, if that makes sense. Because this is all about...
Focus more on the recovery part, really.
Yeah, or prevention part, preventing them from getting to that part. So I was like questioning, and I remember like that session. Anyway, she we did the assessment. She was like, no, I'm not. But literally, she, in that 12 months, she's she's completely transformed herself. She doesn't like drink the way that she used to drink. She doesn't, and this is not by me saying, you must not drink. This is decisions that she has made. She runs, she goes to gym, she bikes. She, honestly, you wouldn't believe it. One of the biggest things that she did was, I remember one session, I was like, we need to find something that lights you up. I know that deep down inside, there's something in there that lights you up. Because she was like, I just can't find anything that lights me up anymore. So it was like, right, tell me all about what you would, when you were younger, and tell me all about that. So anyway, but long story short, she went back to playing the piano. Oh, she's amazing. Literally, she's so amazing. And now she posts it on her Facebook.
Oh, that's really nice to see, yeah.
And I literally...
That's the impact that you've had, though. That's really rewarding, isn't it? The impact that you've had, because you've kind of like managed to bring that out in her, really.
And I just sit there and cry, and I'm pathetic. I don't cry for me, but I cry for other people. It's just bizarre.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
I know, don't. No, it's just bizarre. And then, like if we're doing a session of like, what have you achieved? And if I can see someone's really shifted, I'm like coaching, like in the group coaching, I'm like that sometimes.
Yeah, but it is. It's because you're making a real difference, though, which is really, really rewarding for you, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
See that difference in people. I think that's brilliant. So, how do people reach out to you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're listening to this and thinking, you know what, I need a bit of Emma in my life?
Okay, well, you can find me at the humanrebootmovement.com.
Yeah.
You can follow, well, the company name is Progressive Minds, so you can follow Progressive Minds, or you can find me on my name, Emma Last, on Facebook or LinkedIn, or
Yeah, and like I say, I'll put all your links so that people can access those. You can send them across to us, and maybe the link for that. Is it an assessment or it's a jigsaw thing that?
Yeah, the
worksheet or whatever.
Yeah, the well-being. Yeah, evaluation. Yeah,
Evaluation.
Yeah,
That was it.
yeah.
Get the word right.
Like a little quiz. Oh, I might call it. Let's just call it a quiz.
Quiz. Call it a quiz.
Sort of quiz.
So I always ask everybody at the end of the interview, what does freedom mean to you? So what does freedom mean to you, Emma?
Okay. Well, I would say freedom is my health. But in relation to me is my mental health. So it's my mental health and my mindset. Wealth in terms of just kind of some financial freedom, but I would say wealth is also the wealth of life that you have as well. It's not just the wealth in
like the relationships you have in your life, in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, and just that kind of emotional wealth, if that makes sense. People talk about that. And happiness. That, freedom to be happy, to not be bothered what other people think. If you want to go and, run in your wellies in the rain and look like an idiot, just go and do it. We often feel that, this is something that people are, as we get older, we're like conditioned in a certain way to, behave in a certain way. And as adults, we should be responsible. And actually, sometimes we forget to have fun.
Exactly.
And that is, freedom for me is just having the time to be able to be a bit stupid sometimes and, kind of relive a little bit of that naughty side as well, Because we used to be a little bit naughty, didn't we, Anna?
We did.
Anyway, we weren't that naughty.
That's for another interview, isn't it? We weren't that naughty, but yeah.
No, we were just a bit mischievous.
Just some fun times we had at school. You gotta, I always remember the Centurion riot. That was probably the highlight.
Oh God, it was absolutely brilliant, that, wasn't it? It was whispers.
I remember my sister coming up to me at break time saying, "Do not get involved." And there was me like there with my hockey stick and my big tails.
Well, the thing is, we were passionate about it. When we were told we couldn't wear red noses and support Red Nose Day, and I think it was one of the first Red Nose Days. We were
it was the first comic relief. Yeah,
we were absolutely.
When cars used to wear red noses. That's how big it was.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We weren't allowed.
I know we weren't allowed. Yeah, I know. But when you think back, I mean, we literally was like ding, 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 wasn't it? Just literally across the front of the lawn. No one was even allowed to come that way into school, I don't think. And we were like, I know. But I know, thankfully, I wasn't one of the organisers. I just tagged along for the ride.
Same here. In fact, recently I posted about it on Facebook, and someone said that it was me that rang the press or something. So someone owned up. I don't know who. Didn't even know the girl, but loads of people got tagged in it, and they said it was me. I was like, oh, I always wondered who it was. Thank you, Facebook, for finding out the culprit that actually was the ringleader.
Well, we always thought it was the sixth filmers because we must have been quite early on in school then, mustn't we? We must have been we probably were only 11 or 12 or something, probably around that time. Yeah. So we were like naughty little year 7s or 8s going. running to the front of school and getting our face in the newspaper. I couldn't believe it, though. It was still on the internet. I couldn't believe that you could still see it.
I know.
Yeah. Putting the school to shame.
I know. Fun times, though, eh? That's what made us strong, you see. Standing up for our rights and going for what we believed in.
I know, strong values.
Exactly.
Is you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow. So that's what they did.
Let the school down. We had let the school down. That was the lecture we got the next day.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we should do a podcast of all the funny moments. And
maybe that perhaps we might just be feminists after all that.
No, exactly. Well, big thank you for giving me your time. It's great to reconnect with you and have some giggles as well. And for anybody who wants to go and check out Emma, go and check out their Human Reboot movement or Progressive Minds, and we'll put all the links in the comments. But you're doing some great stuff and really helping people. So you should be really kind of proud of where you've come from and what you've done. So well done from me. Not that you need it from me. But thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Your Freedom Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and subscribe on my YouTube channel. And if you want to get more freedom in your life, then come and join Your Freedom Project Facebook group, which the link is below in the comments section. And I am giving you a copy of my visualization manifesting book. So manifest more freedom in your life and live the life of your dreams.
Hey, thank you for listening. Hope you had a blast. Here to elevate your life. It's the Freedom Podcast. Love, money, mind. Love, money, mind. Wanna see you all win. Wanna see you all shine. Just make sure that you subscribe. Bringing good vibes. Join the Facebook group. Now it's time to change your life. Hope you come back. Right now is the chance. This is an experience. It's the Freedom Podcast. Hey.